Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, how about a nice round of applause for our friends at the library that made this available for us? We thank them. And if you will please be upstanding as we pledge allegiance to the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's great. Nice patriotic moment there. So we'd like to thank a couple of people, just a little housekeeping here. We want to recognize Ted Weil, who is a city councilman, and I'm not exactly sure. He's probably working the room. There he is over there. How about a nice hand for Ted? Ted, thanks for making this happen. And we also want to thank Brian Kephart. You know, it's funny, local government, there's many different kinds, and being on the commission, my name is Bob Brown, and I've been on the Emergency Preparedness Commission for a few years, and Brian has just done an outstanding job liaisoning between the city and the code enforcement area, and specifically our Emergency Preparedness Commission. So let's give Brian a nice hand. He made all this happen and schlepped. And we also want to thank Brandini Toffee. I don't know if you've had Brandini Toffee before, but they're just wonderful. For those of you that aren't hip to it, a couple of kids were trying to put together a project to make some money for a school trip, and they pulled out the old family toffee recipe, and it was so popular that now it's a huge business and sold at Costco, and it's just amazing. And they were kind enough to give us 30 pounds of Brandini toffee for your edification. So, and so, like, when you're going to be giving a gift, don't give C's candy. Give something, give Brandini toffee. It's got a local cachet, and it's just a great way to say thanks. All right, so we're going to get things going here, and today, of course, talking about earthquakes, and I'm going to introduce Ed Thomas. During his career in HUD and FEMA, Ed collaborated closely with individuals, companies, nonprofit organizations, and local communities developing safe and affordable housing and results-oriented flood plan management and hazard mitigation. He says he's a flood guy. He worked closely with disaster survivors on about 200 disasters and emergencies, serving as the president's representative, the federal coordinating officer dozens of times. Ed's been recognized with numerous national and international awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Bar Association. Ed's currently serving as a technical advisor to both the Rancho Mirage Emergency Preparedness Commission as well as the Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network. He's also one of the editors and authors of recently published American Bar Association's Community Resilience Handbook. How about a nice hand for Ed Thomas? There you go, Ed.
Thank you, sir.
They're all ready for you.
And a round of applause for Bob Brown. Wasn't that great? Yeah. We're engaged here tonight in a number of activities, but we are tonight working on the single most important activity that any of us can do as we accept the reality of the earthquake potential here in Coachella Valley. And a number of you are engaged in that activity. What activity is that? Anybody? And the form of preparedness we were doing tonight is we started with social networking. Getting to know each other is the single most important thing we can do. Being financially prepared is also very important. Bob was very gracious in his introduction. I've worked a lot of disasters, a couple of hundred. My wife, Kathy, will tell you that I spent probably about 50-60% of my time on the road working disasters, cleaning up, getting ready, preparing them. And why should you care about that? For one simple reason. Kathy and I have been looking to move to California for about 30 years. And we'd look here and we'd look there and never quite clicked. And then one day I was invited to come out into an American Bar Association meeting down at the JW Marriott. And we just fell in love with Coachella Valley. And then we thought about the earthquake risk. And I realized, with the help of folks like Dr. Dennis Milletti, some of you know Dennis, that we can get through this. We can get through this. Yes, we live in earthquake country, and part of the price of living in earthquake country is getting to know your neighbors, doing social networking, and also getting financially prepared for the very real danger when Mother Nature does what Mother Nature is going to do. We need to be ready for it. One aspect of that preparedness is to be financially secure, to know that you can rebuild your house. And that's part of what we're here tonight for, is that financial help. But I think the message we also want to give you, and we're deeply grateful, we have a representative here of the State Insurance Commissioner, Andrea Valdez, and we have Glenn Pomeroy, the executive who is in charge of one of the largest insurance companies in the world, the California Earthquake Authority, which is, I think, still the second largest purchaser of reinsurance in the world. It's a huge insurance company. Yes, we wish that we had another way of doing this, of financially insuring, but we need to think about, if you don't have earthquake insurance and you don't have earthquake insurance, what does that mean to me as your next door neighbor? In appraisal science, we have a word or a phrase for that. It's called a blighting influence. If your neighbors can't rebuild, if the businesses can't be rebuilt, we've got a really serious problem. So we need to think of insurance as a bank account for rebuilding the entire Coachella Valley. We need to encourage our neighbors to buy insurance for their sake, but also for our sake, because you don't want to have blighting influences all over the neighborhood. We want to be able to rebuild here. So with that, we have two incredible speakers here tonight. Glenn Pomeroy from the California Earthquake Authority is going to do a presentation, and he will be taking questions all throughout the presentation. And then we'll have Andrea Valdez from the Insurance Commissioner's Office talking about some of the special things that the Insurance Commissioner is doing for earthquake. And of course, the Insurance Commissioner's Office is also very much involved in wildfire and flood. So a round of applause. Glenn, Andrea.
Well, Ed, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Let me make sure, am I doing this microphone thing all right? Can you hear me okay back there? It is such a pleasure to be here. What a beautiful facility and what an amazing disaster preparedness commission you have here. Thanks to all of you for coming out tonight to talk about this important topic. And when I say it's a pleasure to be here, I mean, I really mean it. First of all, I had about 5 pounds of the 30 pounds of toffee, it was wonderful. To be introduced by Ed is an honor. I've known Ed for decades. A long time ago. In my prior life, I was the Commissioner of Insurance from my home state of North Dakota, which is a long ways away from here and a very different part of the country. And it's a pleasure to be here in February, and I mean that very sincerely. But we had a horrible flood up in North Dakota in 1997 when I was commissioner, and Ed was with fixing up disasters from all over the country with FEMA back at the time, and got to know Ed then. And you may know, but if you don't, I want to tell you, Ed is extremely highly nationally regarded around the country as an expert in this whole disaster preparedness and response community. He's a leader. His vision, his passion. Highly regarded, really nationally renowned, and he's right here now in your midst, and you're fortunate. In early March of 2000, the year 2020, March of 2020, I spoke to the National Earthquake Conference in San Diego. A couple weeks later, COVID hit. We sent everybody home, and we began working remotely for the next 3 years. It has dramatically impacted sort of our ability to move around, our ability to do things. We're coming out of that now, which is great. I used to do this all the time, go around, meet with communities, and speak with folks about the importance of this topic, and I was kind of grounded for 3 years. So I think my second public appearance in that 3-year period of time. So it's just wonderful to be here for many reasons. The begin tonight by just respecting and honoring what's transpiring in Turkey and Syria, the horrible tragedy that we all witness on a daily basis as the death toll grows higher and higher, now over 42,000, I think, is the latest I just read. And it's going to go higher. They're not yet into buildings that they can't quite get into yet, and it's unfathomable, the extent of the human suffering. And it was a really big earthquake, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake, only the fifth earthquake in excess of 7.0 in a couple hundred years in that area. But it just got hit by a confluence of really bad factors. Really big earthquake, really close to the surface, right under a bunch of really poorly built buildings. And it happened at night when people were in those buildings sleeping. And the death toll is beyond imagination. But it's a reminder to us all that it's not the earthquake itself, it's not the energy that transmits itself through the earth that kills people. It's the structures that humans build that kill people, and by the scores, by the thousands in Turkey. Natural disasters require preparation. But you can see hurricanes coming and get ready. Earthquakes are, of course, unpredictable. Now, hurricanes do kill people. Floods kill people. Dr. Dandridge, visiting with earlier this evening, and found out about his incredible experience as a trauma surgeon in Joplin, Missouri, when that horrible tornado struck, resulting in the death of over 150 individuals. Tornadoes kill people. Earthquakes itself don't kill people. It's the structures that humans have built on that seismic risk that kill people. They're not predictable. Earthquakes are not even avoidable, but the consequences are. By taking a responsibility for safety, for preparedness at the community level, at the individual level, communities can become prepared to withstand those shocks that the tectonic forces are going to produce from time to time. What that all takes is vision, the type of vision you have here in your community, the leaders of this commission that assemble you and work so hard to get this community prepared. Because the deadly consequences of earthquakes are unavoidable, as is the financial consequence of a sudden massive shock that results in damage to physical property. So, California, incredible state, 1,000 miles long, filled with diversity of every respect, of geographic, demographic, geologic. It's an incredibly beautiful state. This is a beautiful part of that state. But it's home to 2/3 of the nation's earthquake risk. We've done a pretty good job of locating most of our population right along that nasty red scar there that runs up and down the west coast of the state, and the various faults that finger out from that. 2/3 of the nation's earthquake risk, right there. That has produced a tremendous amount of scientific knowledge about the risk that those earthquakes represent. Back in 2008, scientists came out with a study that said there's a 99% chance of a 6.7 earthquake or greater happening sometime in the next 30 years. 6.7 was the magnitude of the Northridge earthquake in 1994. 99% chance, virtual certainty, that a 6.7 earthquake is going to happen again somewhere in California over the next 30 years. They went further than that and said there's actually a 75% chance of a 7.0, which is 3 times more powerful than Northridge, happening within that same span of time. And they were right. That's already happened. Both those boxes have been checked. When Ridgecrest 7.1 earthquake struck in 2019. Earthquakes happen. They've happened before. They'll happen again. Where they will happen is what's unpredictable. And the consequences of what it'll produce, how close it is to the surface, how close it is in relation to population, those are the things that are not predictable. But we can learn from history. The results, the lessons of history are undeniable. these earthquakes have occurred in this region in 1918, again in 1923, again in 1942, again in 1948, again in 1986. Sensing a pattern here, these happen, and they will happen again. And the point is, it just calls to mind the need to be prepared. So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about the California Earthquake Authority, what it is and how we were established, and then talk about some of the other programming that we do. The way to think about the CEA is we're a not-for-profit earthquake insurance company, a not-for-profit insurance company. To wrap your head around that for a second, we're not in this to make a buck. That's because of the way we were established. We were created by a state law that was passed after the Northridge earthquake happened, after which most insurance companies didn't want anything to do with providing earthquake insurance anymore. So because homeowner companies like State Farm and Allstate, and all the rest, are required to offer earthquake insurance when they sell the homeowner's policy, after Northridge, they quit writing homeowners insurance, so they wouldn't be forced to write earthquake insurance anymore. And that's the crisis that led to the creation of the California Earthquake Authority. So 26-some years later, this is what we've evolved into. A not-for-profit earthquake insurance company, now that insures over 1 million homes throughout the state. Publicly managed, we have a board of elected officials, public officials. The governor, the insurance commissioner, and the state treasurer are the directors of the board of the California Earthquake Authority. We don't have a corporate parent wanting a return on investment from us, or stockholders who are wanting to see a return on their dividends. We're here for the public. We're here for the public purpose for which we were established, providing earthquake insurance on a not-for-profit basis. We've over time then been able to do other things. We developed an earthquake, a residential mitigation program, which I'll describe more in a second. It's called the Earthquake Brace and Bolt, or I'll refer to it as the EBB program, which provides grants of up to $3,000 to help people in selected areas, in areas that are growing, if they live in an older home, to apply for, and if they're fortunate to receive a grant, give them $3,000 to help reimburse the costs of retrofitting their home. And then just a few years ago, actually just a couple weeks after the Northridge earthquake struck, we were assigned a new responsibility, and that is to oversee this thing called the California Wildfire Fund, which isn't terribly relevant here. It basically is a massive fund to provide financial protection for the investor-owned utilities for the wildfires that their equipment causes. They get access to some financial protection if they were conducting themselves properly and according to all the safety standards. So that's sort of our calling card. That's the California Earthquake Authority. How we work is these companies are our members. They joined us back at the time that we were established. They joined us in part so they could continue to be in the homeowners market and satisfy that mandate to offer earthquake insurance by offering a CEA policy. So these companies sell our policy. When a State Farm agent offers someone a homeowner's policy, they say, now I must offer you earthquake insurance, and the policy I'm going to be offering you is a policy that's backed by the California Earthquake Authority. So these companies sell our policy. The only way someone has access to a CEA policy is if they have their homeowner insurance policy through one of these companies, which is about 2/3 of the homeowners insurance market in the state. So it covers most of the folks, but not all. There are some companies that operate outside of the umbrella of the CEA. Thing about it is, though, if someone does have a homeowner insurance policy through one of these companies, they have a guarantee that they'll be able to buy a policy from the CEA. We don't exclude anybody. We don't underwrite anybody. We don't say, no, your home's too close to the fault, or no, your home's too old and shaky. If you have your homeowner policy insured by one of these folks, by one of these companies, you have guaranteed access to a policy sold by the California Earthquake Authority. Now, it's not an entity without challenges. We have, as Ed mentioned, the demand for this has been so great that we now have grown to the point where we're far bigger than the legislature anticipated when they established this, now over 1 million policyholders. And our promise to our policyholders is that we'll be able to pay 100% of their claims even after a massive earthquake happens, one far bigger than California's ever witnessed in our history. That requires us to have a bundle of claims paying capability, a bundle of cash available to us to pay those claims. We don't have access to all that money on hand in the bank, and so we, like you, insure against being hit by a really a tragic event. We buy insurance for ourselves. It's called reinsurance, or insurance for insurance companies. Problem is, we have to buy so much of it so that we can make the promise that we make to our policyholders, that we have to put that cost out to our policyholders in the insurance premiums that they pay us. So the bigger we get, the reality is, the more exposure we take on, the more promises that we've therefore made, it tends to drive the pressure on the premium rates up. So you won't find me here trying to make the case that earthquake insurance is cheap. It isn't. It can't be, especially for an entity like us that has no financial backing other than the premium that we collect from our policyholders. There are natural catastrophe programs elsewhere in the country that, they have the state backing them, or the National Flood Insurance Program has the federal government standing behind it financially. We have none of that. It's our policyholders, our million policyholders, who pay all the costs associated with all the risks that we undertake. So the CA is guaranteed available to anyone who has a homeowner policy through these entities. And in a minute, I'll describe a little bit of what some of the cost considerations are. And then the choice is up to the individual consumer to decide whether or not to purchase one of these policies or not. If you're insured here and you want one, you got it, and we'd be happy to have you on board. If there's curiosity in terms of how much would it cost you, what I'd like to walk through is just a couple of slides that demonstrate how easy it would be for you to determine how much a policy would cost you individually. All you need to do is go to our website, earthquakeauthority.com, where you'll find a premium calculator. If you just click into that little button on the upper right where it says free estimate, you'll be getting into the premium calculator. And it just takes a couple minutes, and we're not looking for data that we're going to capture, but there you will tell us a few things. Do you want to buy a homeowner's policy, or renters, or mobile home, or condo? And then once you've told us what kind of policy you're interested in, we do need a little bit of information. We need to know who your insurance company is, because we got to make sure they're one of ours. We need to know your address, primarily your zip code, because the proximity of your home to the fault will in part determine how much premium we need to charge for that policy. So we need a little bit of information, but once we have that, we're in business. And you click Get Started, then we need to know how much insurance you want to buy. When was your home built? Because older homes are going to cost more because they're riskier. What is the insured value of your home? What does State Farm insure your home for? Because that's the amount that we'll insure it for as well, whatever your homeowner company is. And a point here to make is that it's not the market value of your home that we're interested in. It's how much the homeowner company has determined it would cost to rebuild your home. It's the replacement cost of your home that drives how much the insurance policy will cost you, because that's what we're insuring, is the replacement value of your home. How many stories? Because multiple stories drive up a rating factor, be a little higher than a single story, and a couple other bits of information, and then we're ready to start producing estimates. So here we took the local zip code and we built a scenario, and we said, let's say you got a home that was built in 2000, and let's say the replacement cost of that home is about $900,000. Single story, how much would it cost to insure that home? And the answer to that really is it depends. And when I'm doing interviews and when someone says, well, how much does an average policy cost? It's such a difficult question to answer, because it's like saying, how much does a car out there cost? It just all depends. And in the case of earthquake insurance, it depends on age of the home, where it sits in relation to a fault, how many stories it has, and some of these other factors. But once we have those, we can tell exactly how much it would cost that particular home. And then the answer is, it depends on how much coverage you want to buy. So you see here, for example, a spectrum. On the one hand, on the left, you see that what's priced out as what's called the mini policy, or kind of minimum benefits. Full replacement cost of the home, but that's the main coverage that mini policy provides. Not much for the contents inside the home and some of those other things you can add on. Just basically the cost to rebuild the home. $5,000 worth of personal property coverage, $1,500 worth of coverage to live elsewhere while you're doing some repair work on your home. Mostly it's the cost to rebuild. An annual premium of $800, $838 for that particular home. Now, if someone had the means and were interested in really becoming fully insured, they could load up that policy, choose a very low deductible, choose $200,000 worth of content coverage and $100,000 worth of additional living expense coverage, and basically access all the coverages that we offer. But there's a price impact that takes the premium from $838 to $3,600, getting so much more coverage at such a lower deductible. The point here is it's really all about an individual's choice. First of all, do you want to be protected for earthquake? And secondly, how much coverage do you want to obtain? And there it's up to the individual to make certain calculations. You know, if you're basically want to make sure that the equity you have in that home, that nest egg that you've earned and have available to you as a result of having that home, if you want to protect that, you don't care so much about the stuff inside it, a person could choose a policy with a fairly high deductible, meaning that you wouldn't be too concerned about a more moderate earthquake that would produce some more moderate damage, but you really want to make sure that you got coverage in case the big one hits and the house is very badly damaged or destroyed. You choose a fairly high deductible. That means that more will be deducted from the payment that's made, depending on the percentage of deductible you chose, but you would control the cost of your monthly premium. So it's basically a way of you deciding how to deploy your risk analysis. Do you want to pay a lot for very deep and very obtainable coverage, or you're willing to self-insure a little bit of that, basically by having a higher deductible and not insuring some of the other add-on features like contents and so on? The choice is yours. We also CA also offers renter's coverage, which is very inexpensive, comparatively anyway, but you're basically insuring the contents of your home. And we did a scenario, and it looked like an annual premium as low as $35 in this zip code. And if you did the full boat and added all the coverages, a renter's policy could cost as much as $1,600. And we did a scenario for mobile home too, and mobile home coverage is also reasonably affordable and pretty important given the potential for damage that a mobile home presents. So that's how to think about how much a policy from the California Earthquake Authority would cost you. It depends on you, where you live, how much you want to buy. But the answer is you can determine that by going onto our website. The other point I want to make, though, is we're not the only game in town. There are other companies in California that do sell earthquake insurance. A company called GeoVera, a financially strong, well-run company. Another company called Palomar, to name a couple. The CA, because we're this not-for-profit public enterprise, we're not in this to obtain market share. We want folks to know that there's options available, and if you're interested in the policy, we'd encourage you to look around, and you might find one of those other companies have something that more matches up what you have in mind, which is great. We happen to write most of it just because of the market share of the companies that participate with us, but we do encourage people to look around and consider other options available. So that's a quick overview of earthquake insurance and how we're established and what our function is. I'd like to now turn to have answer questions if there are any, or at the end, or maybe now I'll move to a discussion about Ed, where we can.
Yeah, just wondering what percent of homes in California have earthquake insurance?
Well, unfortunately, it's a pretty low percentage. Roughly about, I'll say 10%. The precise statistic that we have is the percentage of homes that have homeowners insurance that have also taken up earthquake insurance. That is known precisely because the data the California Insurance Department collects about on homeowners policies, and that's 13%. 13% of everybody who's got a homeowners policy have taken up a separate earthquake insurance policy. Because many homes don't have homeowners insurance, an unknown number. We can't know precisely what the percentage is, but I'm going to say roughly around 10%. So that's something that, I mean, that's a problem when the big one hits. You think of the devastation that will result, and most of that being financially unprotected. The point that Ed was making at the outset, a community will respond and recover if there's a financial wherewithal to do that. After the Northridge earthquake struck in 1994, maybe some of you were in that vicinity during that time. These things called ghost towns developed within the broader area when certain neighborhoods just couldn't respond and recover, and it became abandoned. And that's the goal is to avoid that. So it's a relatively low percentage. Now, it's higher in certain areas, higher in higher risk areas. There are some areas that have almost as many as 30% of the homes insured, but it's far from 100% or 50%.
Another question here, and as part of our social networking, if as we ask questions, could you identify yourself with where you're from and like what HOA you live in or what community, please? Thank you.
Hi, I'm excuse me. I'm Dennis Sapphire from St. Augustine in Rancho Mirage. As I understand, earthquake insurance is used to avoid urban blight. So there is no insurance company that pays out. It's a payment for rebuilding only. Is that correct?
Residential earthquake insurance is a payment for rebuilding the home. If a homeowner buys the policy, they will have the wherewithal to rebuild. They'll have those dollars available to use at their disposal, however they choose. That's correct.
Follow-up question here.
Sure. When you say to use however one chooses, but only for rebuilding, I can't get a payout and then leave the city, could I?
Yeah, you're not restricted to use the dollars. It is your choice in terms of how to use those dollars. If you have the loss, the dollars are owed to you, and you may use those dollars how you choose.
So the same as any insurance policy. I mean, in general, I would get a check. The payment wouldn't be through a contractor.
Correct. If you have an insurance policy and you have a total loss, the check will go to you.
Or to you and your lender as the interest may appear, correct?
If a lender's involved, they'll...
Yeah. Questions? How am I going to get there? Can I slip past you? Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Miller from Sun City Shadow Hills. Two questions, actually. One of the things that people are telling me is that when this earthquake happens, there's going to be so much money that needs to be spent by the insurance company that it won't have enough to cover everyone. And the other thing is that they're saying that our homes that were built in Sun City Shadow Hills are like are able to stand up to like an 8.5 earthquake. I don't know how much truth there is in that kind of thing, or if you know.
First of all, with respect to the CA's wherewithal to withstand a massive event, We have today at our disposal $19 billion in claims paying capacity. That comes from money that we have in the bank, $6 billion, and a number of other sources too, including a lot of reinsurance that we buy for ourselves that comes to us from reinsurers from around the world. So we have tremendous financial strength. All of the modeling, all the science estimates that we could withstand and pay 100% of all of our claims if an earthquake is so large that the probability of it happening is only, in any year, is only 1 in 350. As called a 1 in 350 year return period. Less than 0.5% of a chance that an event would happen that would be larger than that. If that were to happen, is obviously extremely unlikely, has never happened before in history, but if that were to happen and we had enough to pay 90% of claims, we would be paying on a pro rata basis, but in which case the state of California would have just withstood the biggest massive catastrophe in the history of the world, and people would be getting 90% of their insured value of their home, and they'd be in so much better shape than everybody else who had nothing. That the financial strength is something that shouldn't keep someone awake at night. In terms of the survivability of the building, modern building codes are so much stronger than they were a century ago, even 40 years ago. So modern buildings, built to modern building codes that are well built, are able to withstand much more shaking than previously. Whether or not that gives you 100% confidence that you're ready for whatever the Mother Nature might throw at you is a personal choice. But the biggest concern is on older structures for sure, as we see every time there's an earthquake, and as we're seeing now in Turkey.
Hi, my name is Jack Malreader. I live in Magnesia Falls Cove, just around the corner here. You were generous enough to make an estimate of how many homes in California have earthquake policies. Do you have any idea how many maybe in the Coachella Valley?
Oh, I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. I do not know. I'm going to guess the percentage is higher than 10%, but I don't know precisely.
That was kind of my guess too, but...
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I'm sorry I don't have the precise answer. We do see the take-up rate is higher in regions of great seismic risk, and congratulations, you got a fair amount of that. The proximity to the major fault systems around here, I think, gives rise to greater awareness, and I'm guessing that take-up rates greater than 10%. The 10% is a statewide average. Okay, so as to the older building, newer building issue, let's talk about that in the context of homes, because I want to talk a little bit about this mitigation program that we have. Sorry, now I'll get back up to catch up with my slides. So these two homes are in Napa, California. Napa had an earthquake in 2014. I was there the next morning driving around with our chief mitigation officer, and we stopped and took a picture of these two homes. Side by side, built about the same time, same year of construction. The blue home on your right was fine. The yellow house on the left was red tagged, abandoned, and unable to be lived in for several years. Finally, they were, at the cost of several $100,000, able to get in and lift it up and retrue it and set it back down on its foundation, but it just fell off. It just, where the ground shook, that old construction type was such that it just couldn't withstand the ground forces, and it slumped off its foundation. Why didn't that happen to the blue house? Because it had been retrofitted. Someone years ago had taken the time to send someone into that crawl space, that that area below the main floor. You take a couple steps up to get to the main floor of the home. Between that and the earth, there's that crawl space that homes built prior to 1940, even all the way up to 1980, but especially homes built prior to World War II. Those homes were just sitting on top of vertical studs, believe it or not. Those heavy structures just sit on top of these vertical studs. The ground shakes, the studs wobble, and the house just falls off its foundation. But years ago, they began to develop an awareness that actually you can go in and do some things inside that crawl space and tie that home into the foundation. It's called residential retrofitting. And this is what it looks like. you're in pictures from inside that crawl space. You see the vertical studs. It's just a matter of getting a contractor who can go in there, placing some anchors and some braces and some bolts, and then wrap it all in plywood. It takes 2 days at the most. You don't have to move out of the house while someone's fiddling in your kitchen for 4 months. It's a quick job, and it's a relatively easy job and relatively inexpensive. In Southern California, it costs between $3,000 and $4,000. So the question is, how can we encourage more Californians to take this action before it's too late and take the steps necessary to make that older home safer? Well, years ago, we developed this thing called the Earthquake Brace and Bolt Program. It started in 2014 or so. We have access to a limited amount of funds that we can target to promoting mitigation for Californians. With that, we developed this EBB program. The way it works is we determine an area of high risk, and when we have funds available, we make grants available on basically a lottery basis. The areas are determined based on 2 factors: high seismic risk and high concentration of old building stock. Those 2 factors are forced together and produces a forced ranking of all zip codes, 1 through 1,600 or however many there are. And we started in the beginning in the areas of highest of high risk, high seismic risk, high concentration of old building stock, a neighborhood that's a disaster waiting to happen. Let's get in there and let's try to reduce risk and make that neighborhood more survivable. So in 2014, we chose 4 zip codes, 2 north, 2 south, to pilot test this program. We did a total of 8 homes back in 2014. But then every year, we'd access some more money, we'd grow out a little bit, we'd always stay in those zip codes and then grow out a little bit more. And by 2018, we were up to, how many? 177 zip codes, and you can see sort of the expanse of the areas in blue that represent the zip codes that are eligible. By this year, 2023, we are now in 521 zip codes. We have now done 19,000 retrofits. We now have a grant from FEMA that will allow us to do another 19,000 homes. So we're going to double the number of homes that we've been able to do so far as a result of this funding that we received through the federal FEMA program. And that's all the good news. Now for Rancho Mirage, I need to tell you, we're not quite here yet. These are the zip codes that we are able to serve in Riverside County this year. And again, it's just, no offense, it's just based on forced ranking. High seismic risk and high concentration of old homes. You got seismic risk, you don't have that high a percentage of older homes in this community. And so the forced ranking hasn't put you yet within this block of eligible zip codes, but we're getting there, and we're moving throughout the valley and moving throughout the county, and we're now picking up these zip codes throughout the county, and we're continuing to grow. So, really proud of this program. It is making a difference. When Ed talks about the importance of social networking and individuals working with neighbors to help make sure that communities are better prepared, if we had the ability to be Google Earth and we could zoom in on some zip codes in which we've been operating now for 4 or 5 years, and we could get close down and look at homes that had been retrofitted, you would see neighborhoods that are more resilient now than they were 5 or 6 years ago because of all the dots of all the homes that you would see have already been retrofitted. So the community's more resilient, the neighborhood's more resilient, the families are safer and now much more resilient and able to have assurances they'll be able to survive the big earthquake, not only physically, but financially, because the risk of loss is reduced. And if they happen to have a CA policy, they get a 25% discount on their earthquake insurance. So it's a winner all the way around. So we're really proud of this program. And I can't wait to bring it to Rancho Mirage. But for those of you who are from surrounding areas, in some of these other areas, you'll see that we are now operating in your zip code. And we're gearing up to do. We just did a selection in all the eligible zip codes. We hold a lottery. We had like 25,000 sign up for this latest round of grants, and from that we're pulling 19,000 names, and then the process begins. They get a hold of the contractor, they get the work done, they get the building permit approved. The work gets done, and we reimburse them up to $3,000 worth of their costs, and it's making a difference. Now, 19,000 done so far, another 19,000 ready to go, always looking for additional funding. There's over 1 million homes in California that need it. So I'm not here trying to say that we got the problem solved, but we're working at it every day, making California a little safer through this work that will continue as long as we're around. It's a great little program. With that, what I'd like to do now is bring up my colleague Andrea Valdez, who's here representing Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara. Just by maybe brief way of introduction, as I might have mentioned, I was an insurance commissioner a long time ago myself, and so when Commissioner Lara was elected, I had the opportunity to see a presentation he made before the legislature in his first days of office, and he described the department that he was moving into in a way that really touched my heart, because it's how I felt about the insurance department when I was running the show back in North Dakota, and that is, he called the insurance department the Department of Hope. And it really is. Everyone's affected by insurance, all sorts of ways, not only just earthquake, but when a child is rushed to the hospital, when a breadwinner dies unexpectedly, when a natural disaster like earthquakes or hurricanes destroy a home, it's so important that financial protection be in place, sold by strong companies and issued by honest agents. And it's the insurance commissioner's job on behalf of all of us to make sure that happens on a daily basis. So really delighted that we were able to be joined by Commissioner Lara's representative, and turn over to you now at this time.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Andrea Valdez, and I'm an outreach analyst with the California Department of Insurance. I've actually worked with Glenn before. It's the first time we've ever met in person. Again, it's been a long 3 years since COVID, so we've done a lot of town halls, on Zoom, but I'm really excited to be here tonight. I'm actually a full-time here in the desert, so I live here. So when I saw Glenn was going to be here, I was like, can I come? I'm right down the road, so here I am. But my territories are San Diego. I was just in San Diego this morning. Now I'm here. And Riverside County, and then I also have San Bernardino County as well. So I'm just going to give you a little brief overview of the California Department of Insurance, also known as CDI. We love acronyms at the state, so it includes a short update on our current consumer protection. And so with that, I just want to start off by saying that we do not sell insurance. That's a big one. We regulate all lines of insurance, including homeowners, auto, life insurance, and many more. A big thing is we also regulate the insurance companies, agents, and brokers that sell insurance. In California, insurance companies collect over $340 billion in annual premiums, and that's what you and I pay in premiums. Again, your current elected insurance commissioner is Ricardo Lara, and he ensures that insurers are solvent, consumer complaints are addressed in a reasonable manner, and insurers and licensees are playing fairly in the marketplace. Everything we do at CDI is to protect consumers from fraud and abuse. So what can we do for you, the consumer? Anytime you have a question about insurance, please call us. We have people available every single day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Contact us. If you're shopping for insurance and want to know more, you can always visit our website. A big thing here, if you're denied a claim or coverage, your agent or insurance company not returning your call us. Please file a formal complaint. We're here to help you. On our website, we have educational information about every line of insurance. We also have resources, phone numbers for every insurance company. You can look up your agent or broker to make sure they are licensed. That is a big one. And we also have tools to assist you when shopping for insurance, like the premium survey, the complaint study, and so much more. One thing I'm briefly going to touch on, I know we're really touching about earthquakes here, but we have our new program, Safer from Wildfires. So a big thing was when Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara came into office, he listened to California residents and our first responders to tackle the immediate needs. And one of the major issues that we heard across the state is non-renewals and premium increase for home and businesses. That is a huge one. So to address this issue this year, Commissioner Lara launched Safer from Wildfires. And that's our state's first large interagency partnership to protect the lives, homes, and businesses by reducing wildfire risk. This is a 3-step program based on a simple concept. When you do the work, you're going to see the reward. The steps are home hardening, protect their structures by specific things you can do to ensure your roof, walls, vents, windows are upgraded to be safer from wildfires, protecting your immediate surroundings, such as clearing brush. And then the 3rd step is involving the entire community in fire protection. That includes programs like FireWise, which brings programs together to protect their homes. So this is actually going to be going into effect. We should be hearing more in about April 2023, so I'm sure you'll be reading about that in the news. I brought some materials. Didn't know how many people would be here tonight. One of the things I brought is our home inventory guide. We do have it online. Our home inventory guide is a big one. It is a pamphlet. I'm sure some of you got it. It goes through room by room of your home. One of the big things after a disaster, you don't remember that TV that you had in that second bedroom, but you're going to lose more money if you don't go ahead and go through your home and mark down everything that you have. So I can always deliver more in the area. If you ask me, this is my territory. So I would definitely do that. Take pictures of everything in your home too. Go room by room, write everything down that's valuable and take pictures. I also brought some residential property claims guide. Another thing I brought was insurance fraud, especially after disaster. A lot of times fake insurance companies will contact you. Oh, we can give you this, we can give you this. Go through your insurance company, make sure it's with them. And again, anytime you want us to look over anything, a complaint, please contact us. We're here to help you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Comments, questions, thoughts, ideas? You got 2 nationally recognized experts here. Can I ask you a favor? Can we stand up and I'll get the mic up to you. But I want to say something, if I may, first. Question came up about beautifully built houses that will withstand an 8.5 earthquake. Is that possible? Absolutely possible. It is. Just not commenting on anybody's individual structure. I have heard this story before, many, many times. I used to go around every year to a session at the Natural Hazard Center in Boulder, Colorado. Glenn has spoken there. I've spoken there many times. And I would listen to people talking about the South Florida Building Code being the strongest building code in the world, and they were safe from wind. Hurricane Andrew came along and tested that particular story. And I got to work down in South Florida for months, away from home, sorry, Kath, an area that was flattened like what you're seeing in parts of Turkey. What had happened was nobody paid any attention to the building code. We lived on the Massachusetts coast in the floodplain in a comparatively middle-class community that absolutely paid not the slightest bit of attention to the Massachusetts building code. And it only as floors started to sag and we found out that the beam just didn't go into the notch in the concrete. It just didn't quite make it. And that's what happened in South Dade. It does happen. So is it possible to build stronger? Yes, it is. And is it possible that the building code was actually enforced? Yes, it is. But the other side of possible, it's also maybe it didn't. And that's why I think insurance exists, so that we have that level of protection for a highly undesirable but possibly inevitable outcome. So just keep that in mind. Yes, it might have been perfectly built, and yes, you might have very minimal damage, and won't that be great that you don't have to collect on the policy? Now I'm going to come down, and we have these folks here, and we got some questions, and let's get going with questions. I saw hands up down this way. Yes, thank you, and you'll introduce yourself again, and excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm Caprice Lanonen from the Magnesia Falls Cove right here as well. I have a question regarding the retrofit program. We do have older homes in Rancho Mirage, and this is just an idea for the program itself. Instead of doing a lottery Is it possible that you might look at the ages of the homes themselves as more prioritizing those funds that you have? Obviously, it's just a suggestion for going forward.
Yeah. No, thank you. I understand the question. Yeah, funds are finite. So we have a limited amount of funds. There was a decision made, actually, this is a program co-administered by us and CalOES, the Emergency Response Agency in California. And a decision was made early on to focus on areas of highest need. How do you determine that? Well, this formula came to mind and it was developed. You rank all the zip codes based on those two categories. So homes that are built after 1980 are not eligible for this program. It's only homes built prior to 1980. And the way the zip codes for the lottery are selected are just based on those two factors. So there's just there are not sufficient funds to retrofit every home in the state that wishes it. So there's a focused effort to concentrate on the highest risk areas first, but continue to grow out from there.
Jack Malreader again, Magnesia Falls Cove. Most of the houses here that I've seen, and the one I live in, is on a slab. So, yeah, that retrofit would have worked great for my house in Seattle. Do you retrofit slabs?
Slabs do not need this type of retrofit. This is for homes on a raised foundation. Unsupported wall, cripple wall, 4 feet or less.
Yeah. Oh, if a person outside your zone retrofits their house, puts shear wall in or whatever's necessary based on the prior construction, are we eligible then for a discount on your?
Yes. In other words, if a person on their own retrofits their home,
right?
Yes. If the home's properly retrofitted, they're automatically entitled to a discount of up to 25%, depending on the age of the home.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we're leading the way, really. I know the insurance commissioner is encouraging more companies to do more to promote mitigation by offering discounts. We've been doing it now for 5 or 6 years and feel good about it. Our risk is reduced, and so the person who invested in getting that done ought to benefit from that, which makes the other point is people could do this on their own, and we're encouraging people to do that too. We have limited funds available for grants, but it's a good investment for someone to make, even if they don't have access to a grant. And we're seeing more of that activity taking place, just as awareness is being raised about the value of retrofitting. More homes are getting retrofitted, whether they're funded by a grant or not.
Yes, my name is Mary O'Hagan, and I live in the new Del Webb off of Dinah Shore. We're talking about insurance for our homes. What about our clubhouse, pool, things like that?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. The California Earthquake Authority was created only to deal with homes, residences, where people live. That other stuff is called commercial insurance, which we are not authorized to be able to write. There is commercial earthquake insurance in the market out there that's available, and it's not cheap, and it's not provided by a public nonprofit enterprise, but there's access to it through the traditional commercial sources.
I don't move as quick as I used to. I don't know what happened.
Me either. Hi, Mike Lux, Del Webb, Rancho Mirage. As far as, like in Del Webb, it's a newer subdivision, and they have the seismic straps in the foundation and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure with the codes of Rancho Mirage, the house is only like 2 years old. My question is, you would get a discount, say, if you'd put a gas meter stop, an automatic stop on your gas meter and your water meter, stuff like that. Is there anything else we could do besides that?
Other thing to do for, I'm not sure I caught the entire question. Are there other things you can do other than mitigation and gas shutoff valves?
As far as an automatic gas shutoff, automatic water shutoff,
yes.
Is there anything else?
Oh, thank you. No, it's a great question. Yes, there are other things that a homeowner can do to just make their house safer throughout the house. The things you mentioned, bracing, strapping the water heater, but not stopping there. There are things you can do to take shelving and make sure the cupboards don't fly open and throw dishes all over the place. I was in, I went up to Humboldt County in the northern part of the state a few weeks ago. Humboldt County experienced a pretty bad earthquake right around Christmas time, if you may have heard, and went into someone's house where they had all their contents of their cupboards were destroyed because the cupboards were open and the dishes went flying out. There are little devices you can place to just make that tension such that the cupboards won't open. But other things, and I'm glad you asked that question because it reminded me I hadn't really covered other things a person should do. Have that emergency supply bag at the ready for any sort of disaster. And a little tip for earthquakes, put slippers under the bed. You know, when the Napa earthquake happened, the majority of all hospitalized injuries were from people who got up in the middle of the night and ran over broken glass and badly cut up their feet. So that's just a little trick. Personally, also, know how to keep yourself safe. Whether you're here in the city hall when the earthquake strikes or if you're visiting relatives in San Francisco, know what to do to keep yourself safe. And that, there's been a change in philosophy over the last couple of decades. It used to be, the experts thought, get up and run to the doorway. Everybody, earthquake happens, let's all jam into that door frame. Well, that doesn't work very well for lots of reasons. First of all, the door frame's no safer than the rest of the structure. Secondly, we can't all fit. But most importantly, all we're doing is putting ourselves in harm's way from that heavy thing that's going to fall off the wall and look to strike you in the head and cause injury, or things that'll fall down from above. So what the experts recommend now, and have for the last 20 years or so, very simple. Drop, cover, and hold. Drop to the ground immediately. Don't look around and think about how to get out. Just drop to the ground. Hold on. If you buy a table, great. But if you're not, just drop. Cover your head. So if you're close, sorry, drop, cover, and hold. Drop to the ground. Cover your head. If you're close to a table, get under it. If there's no table nearby, just cover your head because it's that thing that heavy objects are going to look to strike. So drop, cover, and just hold on. Wait till the ground quits shaking, and then it's time to get up and start looking for a way to get out of the building. So all sorts of ways to mitigate in your home. Have that emergency supply kit at the ready, and know how to keep yourself safe. Because when it strikes without warning, and we can't all go Google what do we do when we're hit by an earthquake. You just got to have that muscle memory in place. Doesn't hurt to practice it too, by the way. Third Thursday of every October, there's this thing that we both promote called the Great California Shakeout, which is the largest earthquake preparedness drill in the world. Happens every third Thursday in October, and we are out there in the schools teaching kids how to drop, cover, and hold, and in businesses too. And we can lead by example by talking to our families about how that day is a good reminder to just build that muscle memory of how to keep yourself safe by drop, covering, and holding on.
Thank you. I had one. I'm just curious about one other thing. I mean, this area is basically a big sandbox. Okay. And as far as with earthquakes, I believe it's called liquefaction. How do the slabs hold up in that? I mean,
not well.
Not well. Okay.
Not well.
I was curious about that.
Liquefaction is the principle wherever you have loose soil that shakes like a bowl of jelly when the ground shakes, and then structures that are on top of that become unstable. Christchurch, New Zealand was a good example of that, hit by a big earthquake in 10 years ago or so, and we went over and took a look at all the damage that was caused by liquefaction there. And so liquefaction is a real risk, and that actually all the mitigation in the world might not be able to help in the case of a massive event that really causes that liquefaction to occur.
One of the things that we have, fortunately, in Coachella Valley is we have the Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, and we have Carla is here from there. There is detailed education information that comes out from them on what you can do at home, whether it's hanging pictures so that they don't pop off the wall.
Yeah.
Dr. Dandridge in the back here is a trauma surgeon who worked, as Glenn pointed out, went through the Joplin tornado, knows about what happens with glass strewn all over. You can do a lot of stuff in your house. The cabinet stuff, proper wall hangings, all can reduce your personal risk. But the most important thing is is to glance around in here, and I noticed that a lot of people sitting under those particular lights there. I usually try and avoid that. It's just a thought, because you're not going to get a lot of warning, and your life is mighty precious.
I saw a video once of taken in the back of it. There was a video camera in the back of a schoolroom, and the camera was rolling when an earthquake struck. And this was before we knew about the drop, cover, and hold thing. And the video showed all these kids just getting up and running. And every single one of them was just putting themselves in harm's way for all those heavy things that were then going to be looking for them, like heat, seat, and mixels. So that's the thing. Drop, cover, and hold on, and then when it's safe, you can start to move about.
Hi, I'm Doug Lynch. I live in the Springs. My question is about condominiums. So in a condominium, the policy is for the walls in.
That's right.
So aren't you only as good as your
Yes.
condominium association and the policy they have? And isn't it true that most of the ones in this valley are underinsured?
That's a sad truth. It's true. Condominium insurance sold to the condo owner is for the walls in. So if a condo owner is in an association, that the association has a master policy that covers the common areas, that's the best case scenario, in which case then a condo policy for the unit makes a lot of sense, covering all the appliances and all the stuff that's within it, and from the walls within the condo itself. But a residential condo policy is tough for, is fairly limited for someone who lives in a condominium complex where the association hasn't yet made the decision to insure the whole association. And that's commercial insurance, which we're not authorized to write.
Understood. And one other thing, if a large earthquake hit this valley, there are a limited number of contractors. And I know disasters bring contractors to the disaster, but isn't the reality it would take years to even get to some of us to make our repairs, and by then some of us will have moved on to another, to either geographically or existentially.
That's another reality that is undeniable, and Ed could speak to it more than I, but in a major disaster zone, it is difficult. And so it becomes kind of an all-in effort to be creative and get contractors in and get supply chains built and get relief as quickly as possible, get that rebuilding occurring as possible. But any of us would be, disingenuous if we said everything can be made right overnight. It's a massive disaster requires a massive amount of effort to recover.
Hi there, my name is Mike Gialdini. I'm another Del Webb person, and I head up the Earthquake Committee in Del Webb. So the Del Webb people, please see me after the meeting or come to our March 11th meeting. I wanted to have a call out for the Insurance Commission. I had a problem with when MetLife and State Farm came together. They dropped my policy and forgot to tell me and my mortgage company. I contacted you guys. A day later, you contacted us and did follow up, so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Got another question down here. Any more questions?
I appreciate that. I feel
Queuing
like,
up? Okay, yes.
we come out here and we try to give it our all.
Hi, my name is Kutiel. I'm from Los Angeles. Drove out here for this conference, so I appreciate it. I'm actually a contractor with the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program. We've been with them for several years now. My personal company has retrofitted well over 350 homes, so we've been with them for a while. They actually knew I was coming out today, and I have someone's name who wants to give a shout out, so give me 1 second here. Are you familiar with Guillermo? I think you used to work with him. G, exactly. He told me his name was G. I didn't know if that was what I should call him. He said he knows it from North Dakota. So there we go. I've been working with it for a while. Just wanted to, give a shout out to the program. It's a really great program. A lot of homeowners use it. We work with a lot of insurance companies, so we're very familiar with the hazard reduction discounts and things like that. And a lot of our customers do come from the EBB program. So it's a great program to be involved with.
Well, thank you for your work. And if you want to spend a little bit of time up in the beautiful Humboldt County region, we need contractors up there real bad.
We look in Los Angeles, and we have another office in San Diego, so we service pretty far out. We used to actually be in San Jose and work with Northern California, plan set A versus plan set 1 for LADBS bolting. So we've been around the block.
Well, thank you. If anyone's interested in retrofitting, go to earthquakebracebolt.com. We've got a website of all trained contractors, and you can see how many they've done. This gentleman will show up because he's done 350 of them, which is wonderful. And thank you for the work that you're doing.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Carla Sullivan-Dilly, and I'm the very proud president of the nonprofit Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, and I recognize a lot of you. I have 2 words. Thank you for being here tonight. I consider you all volunteers, and that is who runs Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network. We are all volunteers. We're passionate about what you can do to minimize injuries and being successful after a very stressful event. So if any of you aren't familiar with us, we're very user-friendly. We've got brochures on the back of the table, and give us a call. We're happy to come out to your community. I think if I ask for a show of hands, anybody here had any connection with CVDPN in the last couple months? Nice. Okay. We're out there, and we are serving you. Okay? So call us. Thank you. And great presentation. Very much.
Thank you for what you all do. This is you got something good going on here. Good for you. Keep it up. Thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
But we still have questions.
Thanks. Hi, Dennis Sapphire, St. Augustine, Rancho Mirage. Just on a point of clarification as to how a percentage deductible works. You know, with my car insurance, if I have a $1,000 deductible, I might not be able to really claim for $1,500. Is the percentage calculated on the assessed loss or on the total amount insured?
Thank you for the question. So here's how the deductible works. If you have, let's say, $1 million home for easy math, and you choose a 10% deductible, that means that when you have a total loss, 10% of $1 million or $100,000 will be deducted from the payment that's made to you. You don't have to write out a check for that deductible amount. You don't have to come up with that first. That will just be the amounts that's deducted from the payment on the covered loss. You don't have to have a 10% deductible. You can choose a 5%, 10%, 15, 20, or 25% deductible, but that's how it works. The amount is deducted. You don't have to come up with it up front.
Oh, as a follow-up, my question is really, what if my claim is for $200,000? Is it 10% of 200?
Oh, no, it's 10% of the insured value of the home. 10%. The percentage is applied to the insured value of the home.
This is not my question.
Okay.
If my insured value is $1 million,
yes,
but my loss is $200,000,
yes,
and I have a 10% deductible, am I going to lose the first $100,000
yes,
of the $200,000?
That will be deducted from the insured loss. So $100,000 deducted from $200,000, and you will be paid $100,000, and you will have had your $100,000 deductible.
So off any claim, I lose the 10% off $1 million.
That's correct. The percentage is applied to the insured value of the home, regardless of what the loss is.
Questions? Now, I'm told, I mean, it's one of those things I don't know, but I've been told, apparently the doors are not going to operate to get us out of here until the refreshments are gone. And that's, but I was really asked is please, you know, the Brandini people were so wonderful to give their toffee, this wonderful toffee that's made here locally. We've got sparkling wine. Anything more people want to do? I'm really glad to see some people from Del Webb talking to each other. I'm really glad to meet one of my neighbors from St. Augustine. That's very exciting. 2 of my neighbors from St. Augustine, actually, earlier. Going once, going twice. Huge round of applause for some great speakers. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Huge thanks again to the Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network. This presentation will be posted on the library website, on CVDPN's website, and also on the City of Rancho Mirage's website. So let your neighbors know the information will be out there. Please spread the word that the presentation's available. Thank you all.